Monday, April 3rd. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And now for something completely different. Let's do this.
I've discovered the secret of the train.
The secret of space?
The secret of the train. You see, looking at, there's a problem taking commuter trains into New York City, and that there are other people on these trains. And there's an interesting social problem where different people have different degrees of comfort with other people. And as a result, a lot of times, it's kind of like at a urinal in a men's bathroom. People do everything they can to not have to sit next to another human being. They'll sit apart from each other. Like if you did a stop motion or just you watch as time went on, train cars fill up, pretty much every single seat will have one person in it before a single person sits next to anyone else.
Unless they're people who are together to begin with. If someone gets on the train with their wife, they'll sit next to each other.
Yeah, but on the morning commute, that's pretty rare. I mean, Emily did that back when we rode our bikes to the train station every morning together, but now that I take the 5:30 train, I don't think that's happening anymore.
No, not going to happen.
But this morning, I was thinking, because next week at my job, I'm actually giving a 2-hour lecture on game theory. And one of the moral of my lecture is that game theory can be applied to real life intuitively. And you don't need to know the math so much, you just need to be able to intuit anyway. So I was thinking about, all right, here's the situation. I'm getting on the train, getting a good seat, because the one fear that has come to pass many times in my life since I started working in the city is fat dude sits next to me.
Yeah, that's always bad. Or get on the train at the last second, all the seats are filled with people.
Or someone sits next to me who's really smelly. Or someone sits next to me with a wide leg spread.
Yep.
But, otherwise, I'll generally just sit right next to people. So I thought, all right, let's look at this logically. How can what's my utility? My utility is the most space for me without anyone else mucking it up.
That's what everyone else is thinking also. That's why they don't sit with anyone else.
Yes, but then I thought, how can I maximize that? And I tried something that I've never really seen anyone else do, at least not often. So there's 2-seaters and 3-seaters. A lot of people, their strategy is they'll sit in the aisle of a 2-seater, hoping that no one will have the courage to ask them to stand up so they can sit in the seat by the window.
No. See, a 2-seater or a 3-seater is probably going to end up with 2 people no matter what. The 3-seater is a safer bet because, you'll sit on the window seat, someone will take the aisle, and the middle, 9 out of 10 times, will never get filled.
Yep. Now, there's nice social engineering where what they did on a lot of the trains, it didn't work so well, is the 2 seats next to each other in the 3-seater have a headrest. But the seat on the end doesn't, hoping that people would kind of slide over. People don't slide over. But I did the other day.
They would rather go without a headrest than...
I did the other day, and someone got so uncomfortable they got up and walked away and left me with a 3-seater by myself. This was kind of the inspiration, because I was looking, and I wanted a headrest because I had my pillow. I was going to take a nap. And I see that there's a whole bunch of 3-seaters with one person in them sitting by the window. So I just sat right next to one of those people. So I also got a headrest. And the guy sat there for a minute, and then he's like, excuse me, and he got up and he went to another seat.
All right.
So I realized something. And this morning, I got on the train.
You sit in the middle of a 3-seater
I sat in the middle of a 3-seater, and one guy was like, excuse me, can I sit there? And I was like, yeah, sure, but I didn't slide over. And then he kept standing there. I was like, oh, do you want the window instead? And then he didn't know what to do. And he walked away and sat next to some lady. And the lady gave me an evil look because I don't think she wanted anyone sitting next to her. But then on the way home, I tried the same thing. And it worked again. The same thing happened.
Really?
I don't think anyone will sit next to you if you sit in the middle of a 3-seater unless the train is crazy crowded.
See, that's not a bad strategy, especially if it works. However, I have found one better strategy that is the ultimate strategy.
Well, the ultimate strategy is to be really smelly.
No.
Or to sit in the end of a 4-seater facing the right way.
Exactly. You sit in a 4-seater where the 2 seats are facing each other. It's a 2-seaters facing each other. And you just sit in one of them, and you get all this leg room, and as long as no one sits directly in front of you, you're just fine.
A lot of times, someone will sit directly in front of you.
It can happen.
And then you're screwed, because then
it's the worst.
Your knees You
You're
have a
basically
knee between that
going-
other guy's legs, and that other guy has a knee between your legs. It is
Going for
not
the
comfortable.
4-seater is the ultimate gamble because you could either end up in the best possible comfort, infinite legroom, or in the worst possible comfort.
So I think, of course, some trains have the 3-seaters that face each other.
That's like in a couple cars. I don't know what's going on. It's like
Well, you
randomly
realize-
in the middle of
you
the
realize
car.
that the nice cars we don't get because the third rail doesn't go all the way up here all have that.
I know.
Those are like luxury cars. I almost miss working in Yonkers just because I could take that luxury train.
I know. It's not fair. Well, you couldn't take it the whole way, but you could take
No,
it some of the way.
I could take it a little under half the
We
way.
can just move to Croton Harmon and take the luxury train for
I don't know.
less money.
See, I'd have to go look at the rest of Croton Harmon because I've spent. There have been many times where I was stuck in Croton Harmon with a lot of time to kill just because I transferred
All I've
there
seen
a
of
lot.
Croton Harmon is a road, a big parking lot, a big train
All
station,
right, let me say this.
a train repair facility,
There is nothing.
and some houses.
There is not a single place of business that is not shady and scuzzy looking within walking distance of that train station.
Uh-huh.
I've looked. I walked many moons, many distances.
I imagine if we did live within driving distance of that train station, that we would be a significant further distance from the train station than we are from our train station.
Yes, I would rather have a slightly longer commute where I spend the entirety of it asleep or watching Avatar. It's like I could drive to Croton Harmon and then get on a train, and it is faster. I've looked, like it would be faster.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder how is it to drive to Croton Harmon?
I used to drive past Croton Harmon every day when I drove to Yonkers.
Wow, okay.
You know what? Driving there is really fast. In fact, you could be in Yonkers in an hour, not even an hour, a lot less than an hour if you sped. You know the shortcuts, or there's no like traffic accident or anything.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, I've learned the secret of the train, and all it took was actually thinking, all right, what's the best way with my limited options? Because I think there's only like 10 different places I can sit. Maybe 11 if I count sitting in the vestibule. Or
The bathroom.
yeah, the bathroom. That's the. If you don't have a sense of smell, that's your luxury box right there. Wasn't that funny?
Okay. You have a news?
I don't know. You can go first.
All right. I couldn't find any decent news on the internet, right? So I found this sort of. It's a news, but it's a local news for someone far away from us, or at least I think they're far away from us.
Well, all news is local news for someone.
Right. Well, it could be world news or international
Or what?
news.
No one else lives in the world?
But it's not. Local means like small time news. It's not a big story.
Oh, but so there's no local news in New York City?
I'm sure there's plenty,
I mean,
but it doesn't happen to be the news that I found.
if I was sitting next to JFK, it affects me directly. It's local news for me.
So anyway, the website I found this on is Krish Online. It's a website that is just Brian Krish's blog. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. Doesn't matter. The subtitle on his blog is "When There's Nothing Else on the Internet." So there was nothing else on the internet, so I went to Krish Online, and here we go. He made a blog post called "How to Catch a Netflix Thief." Basically,
Crackhead.
he has Netflix like we do, and he kept getting them lost in the mail, and he kept telling Netflix that they were lost in the mail, and Netflix is cool with that, right? But he's like, I wonder if these are lost in the mail. I will set up a camera on my MacBook to look at my mailbox.
That's brilliant.
It's not brilliant, it's obvious.
Yes, but it's brilliant because he actually did it.
He did it.
And no matter how cool your idea is, if you don't do it, it's not brilliant because he didn't do it.
Exactly. So he set it up, digital camcorder, MacBook.
Squirrels?
No.
Is it squirrels stealing his DVDs?
No.
Crackheads?
Nope. It was the fat kid who lives in the nearby apartment.
Wow.
Yep.
What'd he do?
He just came and stole the dude's Netflixes.
No. I mean, what did the guy do with his knowledge?
Oh, well, first he called Netflix, and he was like, listen, this fat kid, and this pictures of the fat kid right here. God, is he a fat kid. Oh, it's disgusting. This picture, and he's just like, yeah, some kid was stealing my Netflixes. They're like, oh, okay, just, call the police, and we won't charge you or anything. That Netflix is cool. They didn't bother him about it.
All right, that's step one. I'm curious if he is going through with the fullness that I would go through with.
So he called the police, right? And the police came, and I guess he talked to like a detective, and they investigated or whatever. But, this is the reason I'm making this news, is because I've always been curious. Tampering with the mail is a federal offense. This is well known. And I wondered, it is a federal offense, but what how bad is it if you're caught? You know,
Why,
what
you're thinking
what,
about tampering with the mail?
No, but what goes down? You know, I've always been kind of curious.
You used to always threaten me with that when we'd be at RIT. Be like, I'll tamper with your mail.
No, I used to say, if you tamper with my mail, it's a federal offense.
One or the other.
Oh, man, his site just broke from a database error. Oh.
All right, anyway, what happened?
In the middle of reading my news, the website broke.
Well, do you know what happened?
Yes, I know what happened.
Okay.
Basically, the local police are like, they did their investigation, whatever, and then they said, we're going to have to pass this up because it is a federal offense. And indeed, they did pass it up to a higher authority. And then the guy received notice that the case went to trial, and the trial was over. And they fined the kid $750, I guess, or his mom.
That's
or
it?
Whoever. And they put him in some sort of like first offenders program, which is a like rehab for first offending kids.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, but it's like, so if it really is a federal offense and the feds really will come and get you. And
Well, yes, as well they should.
they should, but it was kind of interesting to actually see someone getting, I guess, arrested and convicted of mail offending for stealing some dude's Netflixes.
Damn you, fat kid.
It was a really schlubby-looking fat kid. You'll see the pictures if the website ever comes back up.
I was trying to look, but I don't know if I want to see it.
Yeah, it's just a schlubby fat kid. He's wearing just like shorts and nothing else, and he's got this like little like crap fro, and it's not a pleasant sight. It's a lot like, Lord Gloom.
But stealing a Netflix is practically free.
I know.
Even though I was listening to a certain unnamed podcast recently, and I just want to point out that a lot of people don't seem to realize that Netflix On Demand lets you watch as much as you want.
Yeah.
You could leave it streaming 24/7, 7 days a week. They don't care at all.
Yep. I figured out Netflix's plan with the Netflix On Demand.
Oh, I figured it out too.
What do you think their plan is?
Well, I've noticed one thing. Because they have a lot of stuff in the Netflix On Demand, but they don't have enough. Because if you search for a movie, it will not be in there. Like, no matter what, if you search for a movie, it's not going to be in the On Demand. But if you browse through the On Demand, you'll see a whole bunch of movies that you wouldn't mind watching right now. And there's just enough there to keep me from going to Blockbuster ever again.
Well, that could be part of their plan. But my thinking is, right, the more you watch in the on-demand,
the less you watch.
The less frequently you're going to be sending your DVDs back, and you're going to be less likely to pick those movies as DVDs so they can buy less of those movies. Maybe they're expensive movies. Maybe they're movies they're trying to
I think it's a confluence of all these factors.
Yeah. People wonder, like, how is Netflix making money on this? Well, if you drop your Netflix subscription, you're going to lose that. So if it hooks you in, you're still going to keep your subscription, even if you might reduce your discs, but you'll never leave because you're hooked on the on-demand.
Yeah, the only problem I've ever had with Netflix is that 2 Avatar DVDs in a row were too scratched to play. You damn kids. Stop scratching your DVDs.
Yeah, and stop stealing them out of my mailbox, fat kid.
There's no fat kid here.
I know.
There's no fat kid anywhere near our house.
All right, go.
Go? Oh, yeah, news, eh?
Yeah, news. Because my thing of the day, the website's back. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, maybe it is.
All right, there's a whole bunch of news, and there's a lot I want to talk about. But at the same time, all the political stuff, I know Scott doesn't care about it, so bringing it up wouldn't really be interesting.
Unless you wanted to hear me groan. Guess what? I'll let you hear me groan anyway.
I mean, I could talk about how, as I said last week, I'm reasonably certain, I give it a 95% chance that Barack Obama is going to be the nominee and that there's no way Hillary can come back. But Scott doesn't want me to talk about that.
What's to say? You said it already.
I could also talk about that.
Saying the same thing for weeks.
Interesting leaked White House memo. I almost said menu. That would be a little bit frightening.
The menu is probably really great. I hear they have professional
babies on it,
and it's guaranteed not poison.
Wow, yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
That's kind of like if you're the emperor and you've got that guy who tastes your food.
You mean you?
What? That doesn't make any sense. I am not an emperor, nor am I an emperor's food taster.
the emperor is his own food taster. I mean, someone else might taste it first, but if he doesn't taste his food, what's the point? Did someone remove his tongue?
I don't know what I can say to that other than that Scott farted as soon as he stopped talking.
Yeah.
And that was fine. Anyway, it's Thursday if you couldn't tell. I'd like to talk a
Oh,
little
joy.
bit.
Let's try to keep this not like last Thursday, which was...
I'd like to talk a little bit about not so much this news. I'm not even going to talk about the article or any of that. I want to talk about the topic a tiny bit.
All right.
Because it illustrates why I am not afraid of terrorism and why I think pretty much everyone in America who is afraid of terrorism in America is, I don't want to say something so crude as being a goddamn liberal pussy.
A doofus?
I just wanted to say goddamn liberal pussy. I don't like to use the word pussy.
I think doofus is
and I
the
don't
word.
like to use the word liberal in that sense. Because
If you don't want to use the doofus, we can use the word wuss.
wuss works. Doofus doesn't really fit. But I'll put it this way.
Doofus.
The title
No.
of the /dot link here is Engineers Make Good Terrorists? And I've seen a number of articles that broach this subject in the past, talking about how if you want to analyze like the thinking it would take to be an effective terrorist, there's no one better to commit acts of terror than an engineer. And in fact, a lot of terrorists that have been discovered or studied in history have had engineering backgrounds.
Yeah. Well,
And
I mean, this is purely anecdotal here, but, you know, I'm among engineers and engineer-type thinking people.
I've seen a lot of people blow a lot of stuff up because they were bored.
Yeah, and whenever there are, you know, real terrorists, whenever a real terrorist attack happens, right, it's always the engineer-type thinking people saying, you know, why did they do that? They would have succeeded if they only did this. And, in fact, I find that people who have an engineer type way of thinking are often less afraid of terrorists because we look at the world and we say, wow, if you did this, it would be so easy to cause a ludicrous amount of damage, you know, and no one's done it.
Well, that is the point I was going to make.
The other thing is I think that while engineer type thinking people like can come up with ways to, you know, do really effective terrorist attacks and such, I don't think they're any more likely to want to do terrorist attacks than anyone else.
Well, that was kind of the point I was going to make is that, you know, they talk about this, and I've noticed because a good example of this was when we were in high school because the Columbine incident happened while Scott and I were in high school, and I remember for the next week or so, pretty much there were there were three kinds of people in the schools. One kind were the people who were afraid after this and really freaked out and like they were nervous and weird about it for the rest of high school. And then there were the group of people, and I was among them, who would kind of seriously debate how absolutely ineffective the attack was and couldn't imagine why, if they were going to do something like that, they did it so quote unquote shoddily. And it's not like we were planning on Columbining.
It wasn't like, you know, oh, they should have killed more people or killing people was good. It was, if their goal was to kill people, they did a really bad job. And it's like you analyze the job they did, even though you completely disagree with their goals and intents and such. You know, you can't, it's like if you see, it's sort of like, you know, in like a Bugs Bunny cartoon when like.
I was going to use the example of a fat man trying to eat something, but go on.
No, the Bugs Bunny cartoon where the gremlin is hitting the front of the bomb with the hammer, right? And Bugs Bunny is like, you know, oh, you're doing that all wrong. No, here's the right way to do it. And he hits it real hard, you know, and it blows up. And it's like, Bugs Bunny doesn't want the bomb to blow up. He's not looking out to kill people, but he sees someone doing a bad job of something, and he's like, you're doing a bad job. This is how to do it better.
As a brief aside, I would like to point out that Bugs Bunny was an absolute asshole.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That opera singer didn't deserve that at all. But anyway. So, people who are afraid of terrorism, and Scott brought this up very briefly, but I point out that how there have been very few terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. Very few ever. You're more likely to die every day going to work than you are to be killed.
Driving is like 10,000 times more dangerous than terrorism.
Now, I mean, we don't want to get the police on us, but consider this. Smart people can look around the world, and it would be trivial to conduct some sort of act of terrorism, some horrible act. There's so many opportunities and ways that anyone smart or with a quote-unquote engineering background could trivially pull these things off. But despite it being so easy, it doesn't happen. And that leads me to believe that either one, all the people who want to be terrorists are independent of that stupid, which is a very good
A lot of them
possibility.
are. Like, look at that. Like, look at a lot of examples.
The shoe
like,
bomber.
The
guy-
shoe bomber. There was a guy actually recently he was caught. I don't know what he's trying to do, but they just caught him because he's a moron.
Oh, because
Unabomber.
he had a bag full of pipe bomb making materials.
Oh
and he tried
yeah,
to
right.
get on
And
a
he
plane.
said that's the guy. He recently just had a bag full of pipe bomb making material, got on a plane. So the security we have, and Bruce Schneier, the security expert of the universe, will confirm, is the security we have largely only catches idiots and mostly confuses normal people who mean no harm.
Well, that's the thing, because there's two parts of this here. One, this is the thing that bothers me the most. Because people out there are afraid, the shoe bomber was effective. He was an incredibly effective terrorist. The shoe bomber was one of the most effective terrorists in American history. All he had to do was try to light his shoes on fire, and now I, a normal human being, have to take my goddamn shoes off every time I get on a plane.
Yep.
What kind of crap is that? He won, that guy.
But his plan failed. If he was smarter and had an engineer way of thinking and still maintained his evil desires to blow shit up,
Well, then,
then he probably would have had a better plan and would have succeeded in actually.
so maybe there's a correlation between being smart and not wanting to kill people.
I think there definitely is.
But I think there's another possibility, because there are a lot of people who are very intelligent who are also on the wrong side of the whole terrorism thing. I mean, the 9/11 attacks, for what it's worth, were pulled off by very smart people who put together a very well-staged, horrible thing.
Yeah, the Unabomber wasn't that dumb. I mean, he was dumb, but he wasn't,
But he was smart
he got away with it for a long time.
He was dumb for what he was doing, but he was smart in how he was going about it.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe despite what a lot of people in the government and a lot of people in general would like you to believe, maybe there isn't this vast, gigantic terrorist conspiracy to take down the United States. Maybe Al-Qaeda and all these things were just semi-unrelated strings of, I don't want to get into, second order simulacra, blah, 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 social blah, but maybe it's all just kind of a sham, and bad things happen, but it's not like there's this organized worldwide terrorist conspiracy to fuck us all.
If there was a worldwide terrorist conspiracy to fuck us
it
all,
would have already fucked us.
we would have been, it did fuck us, but it fucked us 20 times worse.
And the fact that it hasn't happened, I really can't be cool with someone who is still afraid of terrorists in this day and age, because that makes them win. And I hate to use the phrase, the terrorists have won, but as long as people out there are afraid, then yes, they kind of have.
Yep. They're terrorists. Their goal, to make you afraid. Are you afraid? Yes. That's not good.
But anyway, things of the day.
My thing today is so hot.
Mr. Rogers plus breakdancing. That's all I really have to say about that. Other than that,
Is it as good as Mr. Rogers plus the Donkey Kong machine?
it's better, I think.
Oh, man.
Because he tries some moves.
He tries the moves.
He's okay. He's not great. But
It's better than you.
you've never seen me breakdance.
Hence,
I'll say
he
one
has
thing.
a move, you have 0 moves. Mr. Rogers wins.
I'll say this. I'll try to get my mom to send me some of the tapes, because you realize for much of my youth, I was very into breakdancing.
That's not good.
And in fact, when I used to go to Farm City Week in Macomb, when I was a kid, because my grandparents were carpenters and they'd set up a little shop and they'd sell awesome stuff. And it was this big fair and I would just kind of hang out there. I would always bring this big sheet of cardboard and I'd set it up behind him. And I'd pull out my little cassette player. It was a Fisher-Price cassette player.
Is he yellow?
It was white and red.
Mine was yellow.
And I also had the Big Bird record player, but that's a different...
my Big Bird record player. Oh, it was off the hook, especially I think I was maybe one of the,
Off the
I had
hook.
like Queen and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles on my Big Bird record player.
Yeah, I think Off the Hook applies. And I would play, I don't even remember what music I played, and I would break dance, but I was like 5. And there were videos of this, and I would gather a crowd. I don't know if it was because I was good, or more likely,
Because you're a little kid.
because there's a little kid spinning around on his butt on a piece of cardboard in the street.
Yep. All right. My thing of the day owns your thing of the day. Your thing of the day is a piece of shit.
Uh-huh.
Well, no, not really. But my thing of the day is so great, I think it dwarfs most things of the day.
We'll see about that.
All right, so if you're a kid and you were
Want to get high, but
no.
you ain't got drugs yet.
Imagine if you were a Japanese kid, right? And
I'm the happiest boy in the world. I play video games that me in the real world will never see.
you're in elementary school, whatever,
All right.
and every day you eat lunch. What kind of lunch do you eat?
I don't know.
Well, what do you have for lunch?
What, me?
If you're a little elementary school Japanese kid.
I don't know. A bento?
Yes, a bento.
Okay.
All right. And where would this bento come from?
My girlfriend, because I was rocking with the ladies.
In elementary school?
Actually, yeah.
All right.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
I got a story about that. I got a couple of stories about that.
So what does your elementary school bento look like?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Is it high quality?
Of course.
Is it just, look like food, or is there something special about it?
It's 8 layers, and every layer is set to a different Famicom game.
Ah, now we're talking. Here's a website that is devoted entirely to the making of the cute bentos.
Oh, man. I gotta totally make some cute bentos.
We're talking like Pokeball rice balls.
Oh, my God.
We're talking Hello Kitty thingies with little flower God, it's so cute. Oh my God.
I think maybe this weekend we should try to make some bentos.
I don't think you can make bentos like this because on this website they also have, I can only look at the pictures, I can't read the moon language. They also have all sorts of links to different cute bento making tools and accessories. Like different boxes.
My favorite thing is
there's
the
like a little
squid.
pan so that you can make a pancake that has like a happy face. There's like little Hello Kitty like cookie cutters so you can make a big flat thing of rice and then make Hello Kitty rice thingies. Oh God, it's just out of control.
Off the hook.
It is doubly off the hook. If you like the cute bentos and if you don't like the cute bentos, you're a heathen. This is the website of Win, of 1,000 times Win.
Anyhow, tonight is
Oh my God, it's the Hungry Caterpillar bento.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. And it's got little dirt under it.
So, it's Monty Python's Flying Circus. I couldn't come up with a better way to introduce that. We were going to talk about it last week. We got to talk about it tonight. One, if you don't know what Monty Python is already.
For the longest time in my life, like up until middle school, I knew there was a thing called Monty Python. I knew nothing else about it whatsoever.
Really?
Yes.
I used to come home from middle school every day, and then it would be on TV, and then right after that would be Benny Hill.
Before we say what Monty Python is for the morons
it's
out there.
It's a flying circus.
Let's talk about the first discovery of Monty Python.
All right. Well, I've been watching Monty Python, but the real discovery, the moment where I fully got it, was for much of my life, my dad in particular, but also my mom would get me into various things, movie type things, and my dad would always every now and then we'd be in a video store or something. I'd be trying to buy anime, and he'd be like, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I'd be like, what's this? And I just hadn't seen it. And one day, it happened to be on TV. And it was on. I was like, oh, this is that thing. And I laughed. I watched it. I was like, okay, I'm watching this. And something happened. It was like 10 minutes in the movie. And I laughed so hard at what I saw that I missed the next 10 jokes. And as soon as I recovered and my side stopped hurting and I looked up again, I immediately started laughing again. And it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
All right, so I was at a friend's house sometime in middle school for a party, right? And everyone was like, oh, we're going to watch something. And it was Holy Grail, of course. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And at the time, he had a much better computer than I had and many more computer games than I had. So I started playing Warcraft 2. Not having played Warcraft 2, and I just played it, and I kept playing it. And I was just sort of involved in this game, and I wasn't really paying attention. And I turned around at one point, getting out of, the zone that I was in. And people were watching this movie. And I saw, knights and stuff. And I was like, oh, man, what the hell? But they were already sort of into the movie, halfway-ish. It was already at the Invincible Knigget, getting all his limbs chopped off and whatnot. So I was just like, whatever. I just kept playing my Warcraft 2. And I heard people laughing crazily. But I mostly ignored it. It's a sad story, isn't it? And then, eventually the movie was over. But then it didn't stop, you see. 'Cause for over the next many days, all my little middle school friends were saying such things as,
Peng! Neewam! Neewam! Eki patang zoop!
and I was just like, what the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with you guys? So I went to the Blockbuster and I got the Holy Grail and I watched it with my family and I was like, oh man, and it was quite similar with the
I remember
side splittings.
after I'd finally seen it, and I go to my dad the next day and I'm like, so I saw that Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and he's very judicious. Like, he raises an eyebrow and he's like, and what did you think of it?
What did you learn?
And at that point, I just started laughing because I started remembering the movie. And I'm sure this is the experience with pretty much every geek out there in the world. But you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail so many times that it's almost not funny anymore because you've memorized it entirely.
It's sort of funny in the way, like, The Simpsons and, like, old Family Guy episodes and Spaceballs are
the
funny.
first time I watched it, like, literally, I'm not exaggerating at all. I was laughing so hard, like, I couldn't breathe in and my stomach hurt.
That's pretty accurate.
It was really painful and it sucked, but I couldn't stop laughing. You know that... I haven't laughed that hard in a long time.
So, actually, before I was able to watch any more Monty Python, right? I got the this Monty Python computer game for Windows 3.1.
Was that the Holy Grail one?
No, it was the flying circus one with the giant foot on the front.
The one that had a million, like, 120 by 120 pixel, like, OLE videos?
Yes, that one.
I also had that.
That is why the skits that were in those little 120 by 120 videos are much better remembered by myself than some of the others.
But Monty Python...
Such as The Larch.
God, we got to avoid turning this into the Dirty Vicar sketch.
I like tits.
Summarize Proust.
Yes.
We're not going to just sit here and say all the skits we like, because eventually we'll name all of them.
Yep.
Let's get right out of the way. My favorite one ever is Salad Days.
Salad Days, you suck.
Does anyone fancy a game of tennis?
If I had to pick one...
Well, no. If I had to pick one, it is, of course, the Crimson Permanent Assurance.
I like the Crimson Permanent Assurance. It's a high quality. But it's not a skit
no,
from
it's
the
a
TV
movie.
show.
It is an epic movie.
It's from the beginning of the Meaning of Life movie.
Well, it was originally written as something else.
It was.
It got too long.
They just stuck it at the beginning of the Meaning of Life movie. Yeah, I say, as cliched it is, the silly walks is so great that it's,
because
the way that man moves those legs.
John Cleese is a god among men.
And then you take, even though he believes in a lot of Randy bullshit.
Yeah, he does. But you know what? Also, from what all I've read, he was an asshole.
Yeah, I think he still is an asshole. He's a funny asshole.
Yeah.
And the other one that if I had to go with one is the joke that's so funny that you like read two words, you have to go to the hospital, and
I don't know.
Then they use it to fight Germany, and it's just like
that one's okay.
Stippled something.
There was the argument skit, which just because it's very relevant to my life is one of my favorites.
I forgot to mention. I also had the vinyl album of Monty Python something, and it had two sides.
Oh no,
right?
it had three sides.
I had and there was a third hidden side where if you could put the needle in the groove, you could actually hear a third special thing on there.
You know what? That
was my dad's album that he whipped.
That was my dad's album too. My dad was also live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe my parents, they must have seen him at some point. So what Monty Python is for you who are uninitiated? Monty Python is six
British people.
It's six funny British dudes.
It is a documentary
from the 60s
of life in
70s.
Britain. 60s.
70s.
Well, technically, it began at the end of 1969.
Oh.
So,
all right, they have made basically their sketch comedy, and they made some movies. Monty Python: The Holy Grail, Monty Python: Life of Brian, Monty Python: Meaning of Life. Those are pretty much the three movies. And there's some other things that they've each done on their own.
We're not going to do the history of Monty Python.
No. And they did Monty Python's Flying Circus, which is a TV show that was just sort of sketch comedy, and you can get the whole DVD box. Let's see how much it is on Amazon these days.
I remember my mom got me the DVD box set as a gift, and let me tell you, I've seen every one of those DVDs in its entirety more than once.
Yep.
And there's a lot of them.
It is well worth purchasing the DVD box.
That is worth several
the
$100.
complete Monty Python's Flying Circus 16-ton mega set is on Amazon for $64.99. It's steal.
A wink's as good as a nod to a blind pet, eh?
Hey. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Say no more.
God, we have to stop this.
It's really cheap. That is like an Insta-buy right there. $65 for 16 discs of hilarious comedies.
Now, it's also, there's a serious side, because they have one character who is actually based on what every Welshman is like, as far as I've been told.
Oh, the Gumby?
The Gumby.
I take a bunch of flowers.
Put them in
and
a
I
vase.
put them
Get in
a vase.
No offense to any Welshmen out there. I think Wales is cool.
I actually like Wales. They're the only flag with an awesome dragon lion thing on it.
Yeah, Wales pretty much wins the flag contest.
Pretty much.
Hands down.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But yeah, Monty Python, the style of humor.
I'm going to Wikipedia, look at the Welsh flag. Oh, look at that flag, that big red dragon. That's pretty dangerous right there.
For people who aren't fully aware of all this, Monty Python, their style of humor, they were not the first people to do humor like this by any stretch, nor were they the last people. But for a lot of Americans particularly, this was kind of the icon of British comedy. And this sort of humor appealed to geeky people in a way that very few things had ever appealed to geeky people before. And Monty Python, if you pretty much go to any anime con, any video game con, especially a gaming con, and you can pretty much assume that anyone over the age of 16 or 17 has seen all of the Monty Python movies, or at least the Holy Grail.
Yeah, it's very strange with its geek tie-ins. I don't know if it's only because of the Holy Grail or what, but it's somehow in the modern day, like back in the day, Monty Python was like comedy for everyone, and it still is, but for some reason now it has a geek, at least a geek tie-in of some sort. I mean, they're selling, it was actually a few years ago, they're selling like, the Bitey Rabbit plush toys and stuff. And it's like, two geeks, like you would go to a gaming con and you see the Bitey Rabbit for sale and you'd be like, what?
No, you don't go,
Okay.
What? You go, duh.
Well, I know, but it's like...
so we talk about how video games and anime fandom are kind of intertwined to a big degree, but then like sci-fi and fantasy are really intertwined. Of course, there's reasons for that, but sci-fi and gaming, like tabletop gaming, are really intertwined, and there's kind of this whole Venn diagram web of geekery. But Monty Python and the enjoyment of that style of humor seems to be almost universal among geeks.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never met a person who is geeky that didn't enjoy the Monty Pythons who also had seen it.
I've very rarely in my life known people who were not already intense fans of Monty Python long before I had ever met them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everybody knows.
I mean, is anyone out there, I really want to know, and our listeners, who has never seen or at least heard of the parrot sketch?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be on YouTube, right?
Frankly, I'm of the mind that the car repair sketch from How to Irritate People, which is basically the same sketch, is superior.
I don't know. I really like the parrot sketch. Of course, I like the dirty pharmacist sketch.
Semprini.
No, it's the dirty chemist sketch, right? Because they don't call it a pharmacist. And
yes, you damn Britons.
Yeah.
I learned one thing. I learned the quickest way to spot someone who is faking a British accent but isn't actually British.
Sound like Monty Python.
That's one way. But the other thing is, I learned that someone could have a perfect British accent, but then they'll say patronize. And apparently everyone in Britain says patronize.
Uh-huh.
But then again, that might just be a trick to confuse me.
It could be.
But anyway.
So anyway, let's talk more about what Monty Python.
The reason I like Monty Python, I can't speak for other geeks, but it's got this perfect combination of non sequitur, it's kind of like this was non sequitur humor before we had Family Guy and before we had, these Aqua Teen whatevers. Like, this was the non sequitur humor, the weird humor. The humor that you either thought it was the best thing in the world or you totally didn't get it. And in addition to that, it was often very intelligent. And a lot of people will say, oh, that's pretentious or that's a cop-out. But no, a lot of these sketches were brilliantly written and brilliantly performed and brilliantly done.
Yeah, I mean, at the time that I saw this stuff, I'd not seen anything else that was like it. And a lot of it, there is still nothing like it, really. I mean, you have a knight and he's getting chopped up and he's like, oh no, it's just a flesh wound and he's bleeding all over the place. It doesn't get funnier than that.
It does. There are funnier things than that.
No, but I mean, just think about that. Bleeding all over the place and he's just like, oh, whatever.
But there's stuff like that now. There's a lot of non sequitur kind of crazy humor like that nowadays.
But it's sort of like, where would that wouldn't be there if Monty Python wasn't there.
Yeah, you may be right. I mean, it's hard to say, but I think Monty Python is very heavily influenced a lot of comedy in the United States and in Britain ever since, Monty Python.
And all the surviving members of Monty Python have gone on to do other comedy things.
Well, surviving,
here and
only
there.
one of them's dead.
I know. They've all gone on to do separate things, all about influencing the arts in many ways.
Yes. I mean, of course, I don't know how many of you, I guess I might be described as a super fan because I know a lot about Monty Python, and a lot of people can't seem to tell the difference between all the people in Monty Python.
I can tell there's most of the people in Monty Python.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's people that no one ever saw so much, and there's people like John Cleese, everyone knows, because he did like all these movies afterward.
Yeah, Eric Idle acted a bunch of movies also.
Yes, Terry Gilliam is famous.
I think actually Eric Idle's best part in a non-Monty Python role was, I think there was a movie that was like, it was like something about like parents and aliens or something. Like my parents are, I forget exactly what it was called, but like he played a part of like a guy in a dungeon chained up, and he just kind of was hanging on the wall being all silly. I really like that. Anyway.
I don't know. I was just always a big fan of John Cleese, partly because he could do silly walks. I think he's the only human being in the world qualified to do a silly walk. And I think he's the only person in the world who I could see doing a silly walk and actually laugh.
Yeah.
It's just, and I mean, he's done a lot of great things afterward. Like I said before, but he put together, and it's mostly just Monty Python skits, but he kind of did the links between all of them called How to Irritate People. I highly recommend it because it is basically half a bunch of Monty Python or Monty Python-esque skits and half a very well done, concise explanation of how to irritate other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. He was also in A Fish Called Wanda and Fierce Creatures, which is kind of an homage to A Fish Called Wanda, which I think was actually a lot better.
All right. There's also Terry Gilliam was very important because he did like all the if you watch Flying Circus, there's all these animations and things, and even in like Holy Grail and such, there'll be animations like in the movie, and they're very the same sort of style as you'll see in Yellow Submarine. I think he had a hand in that too. Actually, I forget. And he's sort of like that's his animation. That's like he sort of I don't know if he invented it, but like that's people see that and they go, oh, it's Terry Gilliam animation. That's what that is. And then he went on to make, other movies and such, like Brazil, right? He made Brazil, right?
Yes, he made Brazil, and he had a part in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, 12 Monkeys. I'm trying to think of what else.
Yeah, he went on to be like a filmmaker after Monty Python was done. Is a pretty important guy right there.
Yes. Of course, quick aside, if anyone's seen the movie Brazil, make sure you don't see the awful, like, kind of American, oh, it ended happily crap.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did, in fact, direct Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
There you go.
I wasn't 100% sure, but I had to check.
Yeah.
Not
everyone is a fan of his later works. But
I am.
Yeah, I like him enough.
I really like Brazil. A lot of people don't like Brazil.
It's okay. It wasn't great.
Well, what wasn't great about it?
It
was a little long, I'll give you that.
It didn't thrill me.
I don't know, but I think John Cleese is my favorite. Of course, Graham Chapman is the guy who played none other than King Arthur.
Yeah, he's was alcoholic.
Yes, and dead.
Yeah.
Well, now he's dead.
Yes, but you'll read many a tale of how he was drunk the whole time he was doing the King Arthur thing and stuff like that.
He was also apparently very difficult to get along with, but all of that, all the reports of that, I read mostly coming from John Cleese, who was also reported as being very hard to get along with.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's something that, the TV series, Flying Circus was how many seasons? Like 5 or 6 seasons?
I think it was 5 seasons.
Right, and, John Cleese wanted to leave after, like, a few seasons.
After, like, the first half of the second season, he was like, fuck you guys, I'm gone.
Yeah, and because he thought that they were just repeating the same ideas over and over again or something like that. He was basically like, all right, we're done with this. But he sort of stuck around for another season or so because they sort of made him kind of. And then he left, and he's not in, like, the like final season or so of the show.
The final season, by the way, is not nearly as good as the rest of it.
No, it's
by
not.
far.
And the thing I find interesting is if you watch those seasons where he didn't want to be there, but he was there anyway, he was still just as funny.
Yeah, well,
He
because
wasn't-
the skits that he actually wrote or actually played a part in were amazing. Not to discredit any other Monty Python people, because they were all great.
Yep. Oh, Monty Python.
Actually, I don't know what else I could say other than descending back into I like tits.
All right, let's go through like some of the best skits and parts of movies and things that were
great.
awesome.
I don't know. I really, really like the Dennis Moore sketch.
I don't, the Dennis Moore thing, to be perfectly honest, is not really that funny, but it's just sort of so quotable with the Dennis Moore,
Dennis Moore,
dum
dum,
dum
dum,
dum, and the bleeding Lupins.
Enough, the cat's probably choked to death on him.
Yeah, that part is just the fact that it's so, I don't know. I could just talk about Dennis Moore all day.
Oh, could you? We'll
Yeah.
continue.
All right, Dennis Moore. He's dum dum dum.
Well, but what else you got about Dennis Moore?
Dum 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 dum.
All
dum,
day,
dum,
eh?
dum, dum.
All day.
He steals from the rich, he gives to the poor. Dennis Moore. Dennis
Okay.
Moore.
I mean, it's funny because there's all the kind of classic, like everyone knows the lumberjack skit or the philosopher's drinking song.
What's the philosopher drinking song again?
It's the philosopher. Oh my God!
I don't remember
Scott.
that one.
It's the philosopher's drinkings. Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable.
Oh, that one. Yeah, okay. I just didn't know what it was called.
I think you could have figured it out. The philosopher's drinking song. Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable. I think you could have put two and two together.
No, it wasn't. It can't. There's so much of it. You can't keep it all in the mind all at once.
Yes, you can.
No.
I think it's, I've got two legs from my hips to the ground, and when I move them, they walk all around, and when I lift them, they climb the stairs, and when I shave them, they ain't got hairs.
Yep.
I think the show is done. What are we going to say?
I don't know. It's just like it feels like what can we say other than sort of researching and telling you more details of the history and amazingness of Monty Python, or just quoting it incessantly for a long time. What else can we do?
I mean, other than as a public service announcement, if you're a geek, no, not if you're a geek.
Anyone listening to the show who has not seen all three of the major Monty Python movies and as much of the TV show as you can get your hands on, you have a problem. You got to see it all.
I mean, seriously,
There's no way that you're not going to like it.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
I mean, if you ever met anyone ever who has said, they have seen Monty Python and they actively did not like it. They were like, I hate Monty Python.
At least the Holy Grail.
Yeah, I mean, no one. I've never met such a person. Pretty much as far as I'm concerned, there are people who find Monty Python hilarious and people who have never seen it. That's it.
I mean, the Holy Grail, I've seen it so many times, but the movie is like the greatest comedy film ever made.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries.
I mean, who writes something like that?
Doesn't matter, but it's really funny when you're in middle school and there's a bunch of fart jokes.
But you know what? It's still funny now. I don't know what it is. And actually, the funny thing is, you talk to a lot of geeks and they can quote the movie practically verbatim, like the whole movie. And you think, oh, they can't quote. No, the whole movie. I mean, someday, lad, all this will be yours. What the cunt?
I was just thinking of
all that you can see. But mother, father,
I don't want tracks of land.
I don't want any of that. I'd rather
I want to
just
sing.
Oh, stop that. Now you stay
You
here.
stay here and make sure he doesn't
Be sure that he doesn't leave. Where are you going? We're coming with you, sir. No. God. But I realized that a lot of geeks have not seen the movie in recent memory.
That's just criminal.
But I haven't seen it recently. I haven't seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail in like a decade.
I've seen it in more recently than a decade, but it's been a few years.
And I feel like I kind of want to extol.
Is
onto
it
all of
on
you.
Netflix on demand?
I feel like what needs to be done is all of you out there who have not seen this movie recently should get all your geeky friends together and watch. All of us. We'll do it too. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Because you forget how funny that movie was and also how fucked up that movie was.
Yeah. Oh, I should mention there's the Broadway show Spamalot, which...
Meh.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen Holy Grail, it's like you go and it's like, oh, it's sort of the same jokes as Holy Grail, but with some singing and dancing.
Well, they had to walk a really fine line because if they just did Holy Grail, everyone knows it verbatim.
Yep.
And if they stray too far, people going will go, what the hell was that? That wasn't the Holy Grail.
Yeah. And it's just sort of like, yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect. It's a Broadway production using many of the same jokes as Holy Grail with some new added jokes and singing and dancing. And, it's not bad. It's just, you're not going to be lying and rolling around on the floor if you've seen Holy Grail before. But if you haven't seen Holy Grail, a lot of it will make no sense to you. So it is what it is.
I think the target audience of that was someone who had seen the Holy Grail like once when they were a child and had otherwise forgotten about it.
I think that is the person who can enjoy that Broadway show the most.
I can say one thing, though. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Ta-da!
Remember our promo?
Our chief weapon is surprise.
Yeah, and remember our promo?
Yeah, one of the promos he made was the Spanish Inquisition promo.
It was. Man,
that was bad.
Well, podcast promos in general are bad. And you know what? Podcasts should not be playing promos. It's over. Stop it. Seriously, God.
Yeah, I'm done with the promos pretty much
We
forever.
haven't played promos in a long time because I think they're just a dumb idea.
I think they're pretty dumb. I mean, getting someone who listens to another podcast to listen to yours isn't really going to help you out. You need to get people who don't listen to podcasts to listen to podcasts. That is the key.
You know, I just remembered.
Just like getting, you're not going to, you don't need to convince someone who watches one Monty Python movie to watch another one. You need to get someone who doesn't watch any Monty Python to watch some.
I'll admit, though, I didn't like Meaning of Life that much.
See, Meaning of Life, it has some really amazing parts.
Like what?
And then it has some also.
I mean, the only thing that, ask anyone who's seen that movie and all they remember is the opening movie and then, but it's wafer thin.
That's the best part, is the wafer thin part.
But what else?
The second best part is where they
what?
He's teaching them in the class about how to do foreplay and such.
That was okay.
That was funny. Is the part where they're in the
it was nowhere near
the part where
quality.
they're in the jungle and there's the tiger.
Oh, whatever. It was nowhere near the quality of the cycling tour. Or I forget what it's called, but that one skit where a guy goes to a house and he's waiting for someone's like the butler takes him wait in this room and so-and-so will be down in a minute, and he's standing there and then just a vase falls off the shelf completely by itself and breaks, and the butler comes in, he's like, I was just standing here and it fell, and the butler looks at him with this look of sure you were just standing there, but I'm a butler, so I'm just gonna clean it up. He's like, no, but I really didn't, whatever. And then the butler leaves, and then, a shelf falls over. And the butler comes back and is looking at the guy like he's crazy, and the guy seriously didn't do anything. And it escalates, and eventually he accidentally stabs, oh, man, that sketch is so great.
Crunchy Frog.
Ah, Crunchy Frog. Not the best sketch, but pretty good overall.
Yeah, it's got some lasting memorableness.
I mean, who can forget spam? I don't like spam.
I don't like
Love
spam
the
either.
Spam, Akins and spam, Akins and okay,
Yeah.
I killed that one.
Yeah, I like, there's a whole episode with the Dinsdale.
Dinsdale. Well, we're doing it again.
Nailed my head to a table. Oh no, he's a wonderful man.
We're doing it again.
Yeah.
This is the reason we were so afraid of doing this show, because it's movies you should see has this problem all the time, where whenever they do a funny movie, you can't help but just turn it into a quote fest, because what are you going to say other than, yeah, it was really funny?
It's all really, really, really funny.
It's so funny. I don't know what else I can say except
I think
that
we
it's
should
really
watch
funny.
some while we eat some dinner.
I think maybe we should. You know what? If Holy Grail is in the Netflix On Demand, that's trouble.
Let's watch it right now then.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
It's Thursday, April 3rd. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is
You suck.
Geeknights.
No,